So you recently released a new version of your book. Can you tell what's expanded and new about the new book?
Okay, the new book is basically the same book, but I did a few corrections. There were some photos I wanted different color tones, some I wanted larger. And then I added 16 pages, which was, some of them were photos, and it's actually something I was going to put in the first book, but didn't get around to it because I was running out of time and patience. And it's basically a list of all the shows that Peter played before he was in KISS and while he was in the beginning of KISS. He actually did, you know, I do lists like the Daisy and the Coventry, the typical ones. And then I put in 22 new photos. So basically it's the same book, but was just expanded.
And of course, you have seen that the book is for sale over there at Lydia Criss' table.
Sold out.
It's sold out. Wow. Wow.
It's a shame.
All right.
I didn't ship enough. I was in Belgium and I shipped too much, so I tried to cut down, and I didn't realize I should have brought more because the shipping is so expensive to come, to bring it here. So I should have shipped in bulk. It's a lot cheaper.
Right, but it's still available from your website.
It's still available from my website, lydiacriss.com. Also, I don't know, do you get Amazon here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon also.
All right. Do you know if Jean or Paul have read your book?
Paul bought my book, and I know Jean read it. I mean, Jean has to have read it, But I also sold the book to Tommy Thayer, and I gave a book to Eric Singer. I told Jean years ago, if you ever want anything from me, don't send me money, just ask me. So he didn't ask me, so I'm sure he must have paid for it somehow. But I know that Paul did buy it, and Tommy Thayer sent me a nice note that I did a wonderful job. And Tommy Thayer is the one that was responsible for KISS Street. So that was a compliment, from them. And I know that, the fact that they didn't sue me, I'm sure they're okay with the book.
Right, but you didn't hear any feedback from them? Jean or Paul didn't say anything like this was good or nice or
no,
or don't do it again?
No, I didn't. Bruce Kulick liked it. Eric Singer liked it.
How about Ace?
Ace loves it. I sent Ace a book. He's the only one that didn't ask me for a book, but I just sent it to him. And because Ace is my buddy, I talk to him, periodically, and he's the only one that's been my friend throughout all the years. That stayed a friend. Ace used to live 2 blocks away from me, so we used to always hang out together. And then when he moved out of the neighborhood, he still came back and used to sleep on my couch. He would go out and party, get drunk, and then sleep on my couch.
Hey!
But Bill O'Coin as well. You were still friends
Bill
with Bill.
O'Coin used to sleep on my couch too. No, Bill was the last time right before he got ill. He was at my apartment and he was getting very melancholy, and we were telling each other how much we loved each other, and he said to me, "Thanks for letting me stay here." I said, "Bill, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this place." And he got on the plane and had an attack, and then he went straight to the hospital. So my place was the last place he stayed at in New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I also understand that you've also still been friends right at the very end with Sean Delaney, correct?
Oh, Sean was another one that used to sleep on my couch. Now, Sean used to stay for like weeks at a time. I love Sean. Sean was so great. He took over my apartment. He came over, and I have a backyard, and in Manhattan, that's very unusual. And I have a gazebo. Do you know what a gazebo is?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a gazebo in the backyard. So
It's a little guest house, like a wooden, smaller version of your house on the lawn next to your house.
It's like where you have like a picnic or a barbecue. You go outside and you cook and you eat and you drink on there's a little table in there. And Sean made that his office. He just took over, and then he used to invite people over. I'm going, he was like, I said, who's coming over now? He introduced me to Jacques Van Gool, who's from Holland, and he runs the KISS, the backstage auctions. And he also reintroduced me to Richie Fontana, who's my boyfriend now for 11 years. And I hadn't seen Richie, and he was in Piper with Billy Squire. He was also on Coin Management, and he was in the Scat Brothers, which was also a Coin Management. And Sean Delaney invited him over one New Year's Eve, and I said, who are you inviting over? And he said, Richie Fontana. And I said, oh, I love Richie Fontana. So we had a New Year's Eve party, and then we were back and forth with Facebook, not Facebook, with emails back and forth, and then we started dating about a month later, and we've been together since then. So it's about over 11 years now.
Wow.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep, he's a great guy.
Sean Delaney also wrote a book, Hellbox. Have you read that?
No, I haven't, and I really should, because Sean Delaney was the best storyteller in the world. Let me tell you, he had stories that didn't even exist, but he actually, I should say that about Peter. Peter has stories that didn't exist. No, Sean Delaney was so excited about that book, and he never got to finish it. The two guys he was working with finished it without him. He died unexpectedly.
Right.
He had a stroke, and he was diabetic, and that was another very sad event in the Kiss life.
Yeah.
The Kiss stories.
He was a guest at a Kiss convention in 2003. That was one of his last appearances at a Kiss Expo, and he told a lot of stories that people hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
His book wasn't out yet at that time, so people were mesmerized by the stories that he came out with. He was a great storyteller.
Well, he died. Didn't he die in 2004? No, three. He died in 2002.
Oh, so it may have been 2002 then, like right, yeah.
Yeah, because I think he went to one in Holland. Or,
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, no, he was a great storyteller.
So, has Peter read your book, Peter Criss?
I asked him, and he said yes. So I guess he read it. Well, if you read his book and you read my book, you can tell he copied a lot of my book. But what can I say?
Right.
I mean, he copied a lot of people's books. Peter, I'm sure his memory is like Ace's. They can't remember much, and Ace will be the first to admit it. But Peter won't admit it. Peter's been writing a book for 20 years now, and he finally got it out.
Right. He says in his book that he's been recording like voice notes about his past, and that's how he kept a journal. Do you know anything about that? Was he already doing that when you were with him?
I doubt it. Not when I was with him. No,
Okay.
Absolutely not. He didn't even know how to use a tape recorder.
Okay.
I had to run the tape recorder.
Since Peter's book has come out, some people have said that not everything he wrote is 100% true.
It's not. Peter's an exaggerator. There are things I should have waited on my book, and I should have put my second version out after Peter's book so I could correct everything he had wrong. But it didn't dawn on me, and I was just anxious to get the book back out because everyone started selling my original version for $400 on eBay. And I just said, I hate when they try to rip the fans off. And Peter is an exaggerator. He's delusional, and he doesn't tell the truth a lot of times. I mean, even when I was with him, I used to always correct him, and he used to get so mad at me because I used to do it in front of people, and it was just the instinct in me. I didn't do it purposely, but he would always exaggerate, like even the salaries that he was making, and he would just tell my parents that that he was making these exorbitant salaries, and I'm saying that's not true. It's really 10,000, 25,000 less. And it's not just you, it's the whole band, it's like he would always make everything seem much bigger than it really was.
Right.
I mean, he meant well. I mean, Peter's a good soul. I mean, I love him to death. He's my first husband, first love of my life. And he is a great guy when he wants to be. When he doesn't want to be, don't even get near him.
Are there any stories in specific in his book that that are different than how he describes it from how you remember it?
Well, there's one story he tells in his book about first meeting Gene Simmons, and on the phone. Okay, he's been telling this even when he was with me. He was telling this story that we were having a party, and Gene called, and he was asking Peter questions, and Peter was going, "Hey gang, what do you think? Am I good looking? Hey gang, do I dress well? Hey gang," and the gang was me and his brother. That was it. I mean, his mother and father were there, but they were putting up wallpaper, and the wallpaper is actually in my book. And then he says that he tells Jean, this is what he says in his book, that he told Jean, yeah, I'm good looking and I also have a big whatever, or a 9-inch whatever, and I said, that did not happen. Stop trouble.
Not 9-inch what?
And you said that didn't happen, like the question wasn't asked,
And
or
it
wasn't
wasn't
true.
9 inches.
Bigger, was it?
No.
So you said that Peter copied some of your stories and other people's stories?
Well, the thing is this, Peter, I'm sure doesn't have the memory that he claims to have. And, it's not a lot that he copied, but people tell me that he ripped me off. I mean, I'm not even sure what they, what they actually mean. But I know that somebody else is very upset with him, somebody else that wrote a book, that he's taken from a lot of people's books. And, but Peter he did claim at the beginning of his book that some of the, there's a lot of stories in his book, and they're not, he'll tell a story that really happened with Bill Coin, but he'll say Sean Delaney did it, and he changed the names, and it says it right at the beginning of his book that he changed the names to protect some, or I don't know, to protect the innocent, I'm not sure, but a lot of the people he does that with aren't around they're dead, so they're not around to actually, protect, to stick up for themselves.
Right.
Like, I didn't do that, Peter, but Sean Delaney's dead, Bill Coin's dead. I mean, he talks about a lot of people that aren't around. I mean, there's one story in his book about him having a shootout with the Darien police when he's up in his guest house. That didn't happen. Sean would have told me. And if it did happen, I think it might have been Stan Penridge. Now, Stan Penridge is not around anymore, so he can't protect himself either. So I don't know what his angle was with changing the names of people. I mean, he says he used to drop me off at home and then go back to his neighborhood and make out with this girl, Carol. There's no way it was Carol. I think it was a different girl, but he's protecting the people,
Right.
that.
A similar story that I heard, it was about Ace Frehley's book, No Regrets, where Ace claims that he once was drowning and that Jean saved him. And when this story got back to Jean said, that never happened. It didn't happen to Ace, it was Peter that was drowning. I saved Peter. Do you know about that?
No, I don't.
Supposedly Jean said that.
Peter knows how to swim. See, I don't think Jean has that much of a memory either, because when I started reading history, I had to stop because I got upset that he wrote something, and I said, he doesn't even know the details, like stupid little things, like he says, we rented a white Mercedes-Benz limo for Peter. I said, it wasn't white, it was brown. And I kept saying, why did they hire a brown car? Why didn't they at least get black or silver? To go with the kids' colors when they first played the Diplomat. They wanted to cheer Peter up or something, which was true, but they got the color of the car wrong, and I'm going, how can he not know that? It's like, I don't know, but it was a funny story, but I just said, even Jean doesn't know the exact, even when Jean tells a story about me, that I tell in my book, about me finding a girl's number in Peter's jacket pocket or something, and I found it in the pocket. He says I found it underneath the stereo when I was cleaning in Connecticut, and I'm going, how could he make that story up? I had a cleaning lady. I didn't clean in Connecticut. So it's like, I don't think any of them have I don't think any of them have the memory I have.
Right.
Because I haven't been, they've been through a lot. It's hard to remember everything. When you're constantly, from one town to another, meeting a lot of people, it's hard to remember. I mean, I just happen to have a good memory, and I write everything down. So I had a lot of stuff to as resource. Like I had a lot of stuff. I had books that I went through, and I found names that I never thought I'd find, and so I could put it in my story. But it took me about 1.5 years just to write the text of my book, and it took me a year to do the rest of it. It took me about a year to find people to work with, and to raise the money. I did an auction. I raised the money to finance it, because it's expensive to do a book. And everyone told me, you could do it for a certain amount of money. Try 3 times that amount. And I didn't order that many books, so the thing is, the printing cost a lot too. I had it printed in Italy,
And I copied my book, believe it or not. I mean, I'm the first one to admit it, from Bill Wyman's book. I saw Bill Wyman's Rolling with the Stones, and I loved it. And my boyfriend bought it for me for Christmas, one of my presents, and I said I have to get his printer, and I did. I went to Italy, and I didn't. One thing I was glad I didn't go to Korea like Kiss did, because the binding fell apart.
Right. Yeah.
And I was adamant about making sure that my binding wasn't going to fall apart. And they, you know, they assured me that it wouldn't. The way they call it, there's a certain name for the binding. Huh?
For the technique?
For the technique of the way they bind it, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they must know how to make books in Italy, because even Kiss's new big monster book is also
from
made
Italy. I know, they copied from me.
Right.
No, it is. No, the thing is, Italy, I was told, even by, see, when I first made my book, had my book made, I had it stored in a warehouse in New Jersey, which is a little south of New York City. And they were doing all the shipping, and the guy, well, he had a big warehouse full of books, and he said the best paper is from Italy. For some reason, they have the best paper. So I'm glad I went to Italy, and I mean, my book weighs a ton, and I was gonna make the paper a little bit thinner, but I just said no. I have to do what Bill Wyman did. So I went the extra. I don't know what they call it, but it's like instead of 7. Something I did 8, same thing as Bill Wyman, so that you can't see through the pages. That was important to me.
I think the fans appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but Peter didn't like ask you any references or like any things for his book because you documented everything so meticulously. He should have come to you to make sure to get his facts straight.
Actually, he did use some of my photos, which he still hasn't. I have to bill his book company, his publisher for them, but and he didn't ask me if he could. And he did it anyway, and he didn't give me credit for using them. Also, he had not Peter himself, which this is what upsets me the most, is that Peter should have actually just called me. He has my phone number, he knows how to get me. I've had the same phone for 28 years. And he had his writer, that Ratzo guy, email me through Facebook and ask me.
On Facebook?
Huh? Am I on Facebook? Sure. You know that I am. Anyway, he had me, he asked me, he says, I heard that you had something you didn't put in your, this is before my second version was out. He says, I heard you have something that you didn't put in your first book, and we're wondering if you could maybe give it to Peter to put in his book. And they must have known what it was, because it's every single show that Peter played, and it would have been great to put in his book. But I said, how do you know that I have that? And he said, I guess Gigi told me. I said, how did she know? Nobody knew that except the people that I worked with. So I'm wondering how that got out. But I told him, no, I'm actually using that to put in my second version of my book. And so Peter did ask me for something, but he didn't ask me directly, indirectly.
All right, I want to go back a little bit in Kiss's history. What was your favorite Kiss tour that you went on with Peter?
My favorite Kiss tour?
Yeah.
Well, I would say Japan.
Yeah.
77 or 78?
Well, 77, because it was longer. We went to more towns. 78, we were only in Tokyo. But 78 was actually pretty interesting because we went, instead of flying directly from New York to Tokyo, we went to LA first, then we went to Tokyo, and then we continued our holiday, I should say. We went to Bangkok, Singapore, Paris, and then we flew home on the Concorde. So we circled the globe. And that was actually my last trip with Peter ever. That was it. And it's a good way to go out.
Right. So when did you last go to a Kiss concert?
My last Kiss concert was Psycho Circus.
Okay.
Yeah.
You haven't wanted to see any more recent shows?
I'm going today.
Oh, okay.
I'm going tonight. Huh?
All right.
Yeah.
Where do you sit next to me?
No, I think I have to sit with the person that's buying the tickets. whoever got the tickets. I think it's he actually.
So when you went to the Psycho Circus show, did you meet the band afterwards, or?
No. I went to the first reunion at the show, and I was up in my seats, and my boss, who's a female, she was downstairs. She knew the security for the Madison Square Garden, and she saw me sitting in my seat, and I went to see The Who about 2 weeks before that, and I had met the vice president of the garden, from Madison Square Garden, and I told him the story that, my ex-husband's playing there, but I'm not going. He goes, oh no, you have to go. I actually bought tickets, but he said, just call me and I will walk you in, and I'll sit you wherever you want to sit. I said, I want to sit up there in that row, and he took the people out of their seat and said, it's your seat, go ahead, sit down. So my boss saw me. She came up and got me and brought me downstairs to, like, as close as I am to you. That's how I was to Kiss. And they saw me. I saw, Paul Stanley and I, our eyes met, and Gene was sticking his tongue out at me. And that's the show that they didn't do back. And
Right.
I was shocked.
They cut it.
I was shocked. And then
Peter was shocked too.
yeah. Oh, he was mad. Peter was mad. And then for Psycho Circus, I called up the same vice president, and he just walked me in, and he made me. I stood like in the right on the ground, but I stood further back with my 3D glasses on, and he made sure that every now and then a security guard would come over and make sure I was okay. So that was the last time I actually saw them, but I didn't go backstage either time. No, Peter wouldn't want me back there.
Okay. About the Kiss merchandise, do you still have any merchandise from the 70s? And
Yeah.
if yes, what was your favorite item from back then?
The dolls. I still have the dolls. I still have things that mean something to me. Like I have the comic books. I have every magazine that I'm in. I sold all the rest of them in the auction. I still have my Beth Gold single. I still have of course I have photos. And I do have boxes down in the basement, which I'm gonna have an auction in October. I'm gonna be selling some of the clothes I'm wearing in the book. I can't believe 30-something years later. No, it will be through backstage auctions. Yeah, and I might even sell. Oh, I'm selling the telephone that Gene called Peter on.
Yeah. Wow, does it still work?
Yeah, it still works.
Wow.
Yep. And I'm selling some clothing. I'm selling some items that you see in the book, like hanging around my house. And if there's anything that you want, just email. Just get me on Facebook, and I'm willing to sell anything that's in the book. Just about.
I want you to give me a like on Facebook. Because I run around.
You have to Facebook me, and then I'll send you a like. Okay? I usually don't do likes because I have to know you before I like you. Now I know you. Okay. And you're from Norway, right? You're a Viking, right?
Okay. Maybe to wrap it up, we could take 2 or 3 questions from the crowd. If there's any good urgent questions, we can answer those.
Oh,
So
come on.
anybody?
When I was in Belgium, I did an hour-long Q&A. The fans had so many questions for me, I couldn't get off the stage.
Let's see if these fans have anything. Anybody have a good question? If not, I can fire off a few more and you can think.
Yeah, I have a question. When you say that Beth is about you, I think about when Peter said it's about Becky, a girl, another girl.
No, I tell the story the same way. I've been telling this from the very beginning.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question is why is Beth called Beth and my name is Lydia? Is that basically the question? And it was originally written for a girl named Rebecca, and her name was Becky, and it wasn't a nice song. It was Beck, I hear you calling, but I ain't coming home tonight because me and the boys are playing. Sort of like, did anybody see that thing that was on Facebook? That thing that went around, that video? That was so funny. But that wasn't the way it was, because
First of all, I wasn't tall and blonde. Second of all, I wasn't home drinking. She was drinking. It was hysterical, and I didn't have children. All right. So the other, but the thing is, it was written for her, and it wasn't a nice song. It was written by Stan Penridge. This is when Peter was in the band Chelsea, and then he, but it was a ballad, and it was pretty, and so he kind of wanted he wanted a song on an album. So he presented it to Kiss, and Kiss really didn't want it, but Bill Coyne pushed it. Bill Coyne said, "No, I think you really should have it. It's a good song. I think you should put it on the album." So they did, and then Bob Ezrin worked with Peter and Stan Penridge, and they, am I like feeding back? All right, Stan Penridge and Peter, and then they changed it to be a nice song, and they named it Beth. Oh, that's, Gene said we can't call it Beck because of Jeff Beck. So I said, well, why don't you call it Beth? Because that was Neil Bogart. Neil Bogart was the president of Casablanca Records. His wife's name was Beth. And I thought, she was a twin, and so was Rebecca, was a twin. So I said, they're both twins. Why don't you, name it Beth. So they said, good idea, but Gene will never give me credit. Gene says he named the song, which is so wrong. I was in a limo with Gene and Peter, and that's when the song was named. And that's when they wrote, they put in the line, you say you feel so empty that a house is not a home. I wrote that line. I'll never be given credit for that either, but I had just stopped working. I used to pay all the bills, and I just stopped working and I moved to Manhattan. And that's when Coyne Management took over and paid all about the rent. They took over, every credit card, they paid everything. I mean, it got charged back to you, but they paid it. And I felt so empty because I didn't feel like I wasn't in charge. I'm a Scorpio, and Scorpios are control freaks. So I wasn't in control anymore. So I kind of felt like part of my existence, my being, my purpose was taken away from me. And I said, I feel so empty that I don't feel this house is my home. And Peter went back and put that in Beth. And they made it a nice song. And then they called me into the, after it was all done, they told me not to come. I used to go to the studio all the time. And they told me not to come to the studio until they were finished. And I went down, they sat me on a stool just like this, and with headphones, and they played the song for me. Now, 3 of the guys were there. I'm not sure if Ace was there. I think it was Gene, Paul, Peter, and of course, Bob Ezrin. And they played the song, and they said, well, what do you think? And I said, I think it's beautiful. I said, but as the tears are rolling down my face, I said, but it should have been called Lydia. But they didn't want anybody to know Peter was married, so that was their excuse for not calling it Lydia. But also Lydia has 3 syllables, Beth has 1. So at the time I was Cynthia Lennon. I was, you can't tell anybody you're married. So I had to hide.
All right. Okay, maybe a last question from the crowd. Go ahead.
Lydia, can you simply tell us how you met and when Peter and how you fell in love with him?
The question was, can you tell us how and when you met Peter Criss, correct? That was the question?
Yes, and how you fell in love with him.
And how you, what?
Fell in love.
And how you fell in love also.
Oh, well, okay. I was hanging out with my friends, my girlfriend, and we went to the beach during the day, and she was going out with one of the guys in Peter's band, and she wanted me to meet Peter. She says, I think you'd really, really like him. And I was 17, 18 years old, and
Is that in Long Island?
no, it was in Brooklyn. It was July 3rd, and I went to the beach. It was 103 degrees that day. It was so, well, I don't know if you know degrees.
Celsius,
that would be Fahrenheit.
It would be close to 40 Celsius, I think.
It's very
More
hot,
than
very
that.
hot. And I got burnt, and I didn't want to go to the club. I told my girlfriend, I don't feel well. I feel too hot. I felt like I had a fever. And she said, oh, please, even if you go just for 1 hour. And I said, okay. So I got the dark hair, the red face, and I put on a white dress. And Peter said, as soon as I walked in the room, he says he fell in love with me. And I didn't like him right away, only because he had an attitude. And I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to musicians, period.
And you know, we started talking. We were sitting at the bar and we were talking, and he was a little bit cocky for me. You know, like I was a little bit. I was, you know, I was this little shy girl, Catholic girl from an Italian family that didn't know what a musician's, you know, attitude was. And I learned real quick. But he asked me to go to the beach with him the next day, and like, you know, I mean, here I am burnt to a crisp. And luckily I'm Italian, so I didn't get to, you know, I was red, but
Kind of
it
looking
goes
like
away.
the Kiss ice cream, like brown, red, and white.
Yeah, it goes away quick. It turns brown real quick when you're Italian. But anyway, so I went to the beach with him the next day, and that was our first date. And then we started dating. About 10 days later, I became his girlfriend, and the rest is history.
All right, Petri has no question.
It's Christery.
I would like to ask you whether you know anything about Peter's new rock album.
You know, he did speak.
Let's repeat the question. He asked if Lydia knows anything about Peter Criss's rock album that's supposedly recorded already, but is not out yet.
Yeah. He did mention it when I saw him at Bill Aucoin's memorial. He spoke more in depth about it with Richie Fontana, my boyfriend, because they're musicians and they know more. But he did say he was putting out a rock album because his other album didn't go too well, and he was surprised about that. And I'm saying, why were you surprised? It's, you know, I mean, even his brother said it was horrible. But you know, ouch.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Which one?
Last one. One for all.
One for all?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Best ever.
But Richie Scott played on that album, and he's coming up next. We'll ask him to low down on that, if that's cool.
But anyway, the rock album, he said he was doing some sort of, we were talking about the technology of today and how you could actually have somebody in Japan working on your album, and they don't even have to be in the same room as you anymore. So that he did speak to Richie about that. I spoke to him more about his health. I was concerned about, you know, how he was, and you know, because of the breast cancer. And then Richie started talking to him, and I went over and started talking to Ace. So you know, I did speak to him for a little bit, but not a lot. You know, so but that's basically the rock album. He said he was working on it, but I never found out what happened to it. And the other thing is, I heard at the last convention that he did, he said he was retiring, and everybody says retiring from what? You know, it's like, isn't he retired already? So I don't know, maybe the rock album might never come out. Because you know what it is, I don't think he can get a record deal, and I think he's going to have to pay for it himself, and I don't think he wants to. You know, I think he was affected by the hurricane, you know, Superstorm Sandy. That, you know, he lives down on the Jersey coast, and they got hit pretty hard. His town, you know, got wiped away, just about. You know, I don't know how close he was to the water, but I know his brother told me he had the ocean on one side of the house and the bay on the other side of the house. So he might have been hit, but I'm not sure. But I don't know if the rock album will ever come out.
All right, I think it's time to wrap this up. So I want to thank Miss Lydia Criss for a wonderful interview.
Yeah.
Give her a warm applause.